Let us pray. O Lord, grant us a daily awareness of the precious gift of life which you have given us. As members of this legislative assembly, we dedicate our lives anew to the service of our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions.
Member for Calgary McCall.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to present a petition that has in excess of 300 signatures of Albertans to allow the complaints involving wires to be handled in the future by an office of the Attorney General Department.
Okay. I think it's okay. Additional.
Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions.
Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, I filed written notice of a question of privilege, which I request be entertained after question period.
Last night, thank you. Motions? Thank you. Clerk?
Introduction of bills.
Member for Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce for first reading Bill 41, the School Amendment Act 1992. Mr. Speaker, this bill provides for the management and control of Francophone schools by Francophone parents who enjoy rights under Section 23 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It meets the test that our government spelled out a number of months ago that such an arrangement comply with the Supreme Court judgment, fit within the Alberta context, and be right for children's education. Mr. Speaker, Bill 41 also provides for 2 or more existing school boards to decide voluntarily to merge their operations and to create regional school boards so as to more effectively deliver educational services.
The Honourable Minister of Education has requested first reading of Bill 41, School Amendment Act 1992. All members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried. Thank you. An introduction paper would be useful too. Thank you.
Bill number 41, School Amendment Act 1992, introduced by Honourable Mr. Dinning, is now read a first time.
Thank you. Member for Calgary Bow.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce a bill being the Cancer Programs Amendment Act 1992, Bill number 40. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Calgary Bow has moved first reading of Bill 40, Cancer Programs Amendment Act 1992. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 40, Cancer Programs Amendment Act 1992, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mrs. B. Lang, is now read a first time.
Deputy Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Bill 40, the Cancer Programs Amendment Act 1992, introduced by the Honourable Member for Calgary Bow, be placed on the order paper in the Government Bills and Orders.
Having heard the motion, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried. Provincial Treasurer.
Speaker, I'm very pleased today to introduce Bill number 36, Spending Control Act. Mr. Speaker,
Thank you, Provincial Treasurer. Order, honourable members. Order. sure you can control yourself as well, honorable members. Order, please, honorable members. At first reading is not the purpose of the House to engage in this fashion of activity. Honorable Provincial Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, this important piece of legislation is one of the key aspects of the fiscal plan announced by the government in its budget. In that plan, Mr. Speaker, which provides for the control of the spending of this government for program expenditures, as all Albertans know, we have, I think, Mr. Speaker, distinguished ourselves in Canadian governments by controlling our...
For the second time of asking, order, please, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Order. The chair reminds members again, this is not the practice of the House at first reading of any bill, whether it be from any of the benches in the House. Order, honorable members. Honorable Provincial Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, as we said in our fiscal plan, this legislation will control the spending on programs by the government, setting the limits this year at 2.5% and reducing on a reasonable basis our expenditure controls to 2% by 94-95. In doing so, Mr. Speaker, this is the only legislation of any provincial government in Canada which controls the amount of program spending. We think that the citizens, not just in Alberta, but across Canada, expect government with respect to their spending control. We certainly agree with that, Mr. Speaker, and our record, as I've said, is unmatched in Canada in terms of any other government spending. What I should point out, Mr. Speaker, is should the revenues pick up in the province of Alberta, and we've got very positive signs already with respect to the oil prices, certainly, that additional dollars generated by increased revenues would go right to the deficit, Mr. Speaker. That ensures that expansion of programs would in fact be controlled, and the dollars would go to the deficit, Mr. Speaker, is what we in fact have argued all along. Still further,
Honorable Provincial Treasurer, the House stands adjourned for 5 minutes until 10:15. seated, please. Provincial Treasurer, please introduce the bill very briefly. Thank you. Provincial Treasurer. Order. Provincial Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, this could be the longest first reading in the history of the Legislative Assembly. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, I apologize to members in the gallery for the rudeness of the opposition.
Order, please. On order. Order. Thank you. We will now just introduce the bill, please.
Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, the third point with respect to the principle of this bill, which I must say is, I think, responsible, is that should the government require special warrants about the 2.5% spending guide this year, it would be our intention to come back to the Legislative Assembly, likely in the fall, and debate fully here any requirements for special warrants, which I think is a first step in assuring that all members of all parties have some say about additional spending opportunities. And in that sense, Mr. Speaker, this also is unique in that fashion. Speaker, those are the principles of the bill. I should say, Mr. Speaker, and I omitted this in my introduction because of the confusion and the distraction from the opposition, that this is a money bill, and His Honor, the Honorable Lieutenant Governor, has been informed of the contents of the bill. I recommend the same to the Assembly.
Order. The Honorable Provincial Treasurer has moved first reading of Bill 36, Spending Control Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. The matter carries. Okay.
Bill number 36, Spending Control Act, introduced by the Honorable Mr. Johnston, is now read a first time.
For Rocky Mountain House, followed by Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce a bill, Bill number 297, being the Workers' Compensation Amendment Act 1992. Mr. Speaker, this act, when passed, will allow owner-operators the option of participating in workers' compensation.
The Honourable Member for Rocky Mountain House has moved first reading of Bill 297, Workers' Compensation Amendment Act 1992. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 297, Workers' Compensation Amendment Act 1992, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Lund, is now read a first time.
Jasper Place, followed by Edmonton Strathcona.
Request leave to introduce a bill being the Whistleblowers Protection Act.
Here, here.
This bill answers the pleas of civic-minded citizens for protection from harassment, intimidation, coercion on the part of alleged perpetrators. It amends the Legislative Assembly Act, the Ombudsman Act, the Employment Standards Code, and the Public Service Employee Relations Act to give effect to this measure. It requires no new spending, unlike the Spending Control Act.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Jasper Place has moved first reading of Bill 308, Whistleblowers Protection Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 308, Whistleblowers Protection Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. McInnes, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Strathcona.
Here, I request leave to introduce Bill 256, being the Conflicts of Interest Amendment Act. This bill seeks to strengthen the existing Conflicts of Interest Act by expanding its breadth and scope and eliminating loopholes which exist in the present legislation. Among the areas that the bill will seek to strengthen are expanding the legislation's application to cover public officials, provincial agencies, and apparent as well as actual conflicts of interest, and prohibiting members from participating in areas in which they have a conflict, and eliminating the current loophole provided by the so-called blind trusts.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona has moved first reading of Bill 256, Conflicts of Interest Amendment Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 256, Conflicts of Interest Amendment Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Shivers, is now read a first time.
Silence.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce Bill number 267, Institute of Healthcare Ethics Act. Mr. Speaker, this bill has been introduced by the official opposition, New Democrats, on several occasions. The Minister of Health has agreed in principle that an Institute for Healthcare Ethics should exist, but has not actually proposed a structure. This is a structure we believe would work and is necessary in this day and age, particularly in the context of modern technology and tight funding.
The honourable member for Edmonton Highlands has moved first reading of Bill 267, Institute of Healthcare Ethics Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 267, Institute of Healthcare Ethics Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Ms. Barrett, is now read a first time.
Earlier, in parts of the confusion, one part of the business was not able to be carried forward. I wonder if we might have unanimous consent to allow for the reintroduction of oral notice of the bill. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Honourable Member for Rocky Mountain House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to give oral notice that on Monday, June 29, 1992, I will be introducing Bill number 43, the Municipal Statutes Amendment Act 1992.
Returns and reports.
General.
Speaker, today I'd like to file 4 copies of the Victims Programs Assistance Committee Annual Report 91-92 as required by statute.
Speaker, I'm tabling with the Assembly today the 86th Annual Report of the Department of Education.
Additional tablings, filings. Thank you.
Ministerial statements. Introduction of special guests.
Member for Lloydminster, followed by the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Seated in your gallery this morning is Mr. Anders Ahlberg, a member of this Assembly for 23 years, serving from 1948 until 1971. Mr. Ahlberg represented the constituency of Alexandra, which is now Lloydminster. He served our province as Minister of Education, Minister of Telephones, and Provincial Treasurer. I would ask Mr. Ahlberg to stand and receive the warm welcome from the Assembly.
Minister of Education.
Speaker, there were a number of people that were actively involved in bringing about the introduction of Bill 41 today, the whole process of management and control of Francophone schools by Francophone Albertans. I'd like to introduce some of them and then some others who are here as part of the introduction of the bill. They are Madame Franz Lavasseur, we met, who is the past president of the Association Canadienne Française de l'Alberta, as well as Denis Tardif, who is the current president, Mr. Marc Arnal, who is the president of the Francophone Parents Association. They're joined by other members of the working group, which was chaired by my colleague, the member for Smoky River, in putting together this package, Mrs. Mary O'Neill and Madame Claudette Roy. They're also joined by Jerry Bissonnette, who served along with Sandra Cameron on the committee, as well as Bob Maybank. And they're also joined by Marianne Balsilil from the Home and School Association, Lynn Russell from the Alberta Teachers Association, Lawrence Timko from the Alberta School Boards Association, Merv Kurtz from the Conference of Alberta School Superintendents, and Mr. Gary Duttler from the Independent Schools Association. And they're joined by others, Dr. Bassetti, Mrs. Garrity, and Steve Simbal, who were actively involved in making this bill come about. I'd ask them all to rise and receive the warm welcome of members of the Assembly.
Member for Grand Prairie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's always a pleasure to introduce grade 6 students from my constituency because of primarily the distance they have to travel to come to see us. And this morning in the public gallery we have the grade 6 students from the Hythe Elementary School and their teachers Dwayne Spieger and Joyce Maple, along with 7 adults accompanying them as chaperones, drivers, and so on. I'd ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome if I can. Please be seated.
Clover Bar, followed by Stony Plain.
Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure today to introduce to you and to the members of this Assembly 2 ladies from the Clover Bar constituency. They conscientiously and diligently serve the residents of the Clover Bar constituency. In the members' gallery are seated Susie Warner and Nicole Lamoureux. I would ask them to stand to receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Stony Plain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the other members of the Assembly 30 visitors from Stony Plain Elementary School. Stony Plain Elementary grade 6ers are annual visitors to this Assembly. They are accompanied today by their teachers, Mr. Milton Millot and Mr. Wayne Turner, parents Mr. London, Mrs. Velichka, Mrs. Klatt, Mr. Moore, and Mrs. McFarland. I'd like them to all rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife, followed by the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure for me this morning on behalf of the Honourable Minister of Transportation and Utilities and the MLA for Peace River to introduce 54 visitors from Good Shepherd School in his constituency, along with teachers Rick Horon, Annette Renaud, and parents and helpers Colleen Flagg, Dan Lacombe, Rick Biggs, Dexter Schmidt, Teresa Vanderleit, Mary Sharp, and Herman Friesen. I would ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Minister of Municipal, thank you. No? Scratch. Postpone.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Leader of the official opposition.
Mr. Speaker, what was extremely amusing today was the treasurer of this government talking about spending restraint after the times we've had in the House talking about Novotel, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
That's what the joke was about,
Hear,
Mr.
hear.
Speaker. And yesterday it looks like it's going to get worse, Mr. Speaker, because the Minister of Technology admitted yesterday there will be more Alberta tax money going to U.S. companies to keep them afloat, Mr. Speaker.
Unbelievable.
Now, Mr. Speaker, isn't this just typical in this Assembly that we have a minister who day after day in this House that there would be any more taxpayers' money going into the Novotel sinkhole? Now he's saying just the opposite, Mr. Speaker. This will be good money after bad.
Hear,
My
hear.
question to the treasurer, who's supposed to be in charge of the finances, Mr. Speaker, is simply this. How much more of taxpayers' money is the government planning to put at risk? Is it another $500 million, billion, $2 billion? Just how much is it, Mr.
Let's
Speaker?
hear it.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the member from Norwood, I don't deal in speculation. Obviously, what he is doing is casting the worst possible scenario here. I think we have said already, Mr. Speaker, that we have provided adequately, in my judgment, for the loan loss provisions in the so-called systems loans. And despite the additional information that the members continue to put forward, we have, as I've indicated, made a more than adequate provision for those losses. And on that side, we think our judgment is that the loan loss provision is full.
Speaker, the worst-case scenario keeps getting worse, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
That's the reality of it.
Problem.
And, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Technology is talking about more money from the Alberta taxpayers.
Shame.
The treasurer is supposed to be in charge of money, Mr. Speaker. And
Hear,
let me give you one specific to the treasurer. Is our understanding that GMD, the American company that received a $1.3 million gift from this government for its partners, is looking for more financing from this government, Mr. Speaker.
on them.
My question to the treasurer, who should know about this by now, Mr. Speaker, how much more is the government planning to hand out to GMD, and how many more companies are lined up, caps in hand, to this government, Mr. Speaker?
Hear, hear.
Speaker, I've already answered that question.
Well, this is the guy that was telling us about the great financial restraint from this government just a few minutes more. Now he won't answer questions, Mr. Speaker.
What a wizard.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Attorney General said he would like to hang somebody for the Novotel mess, Mr. Speaker.
Hang him.
Well, under British parliamentary system, Mr. Speaker, the buck stops with the ministers and the Crown, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
So what he has to do is hang the Minister of Technology, hang the Premier, and hang the Treasurer, Mr. Speaker.
Right on.
But, Mr. Speaker, I find hanging fairly gross, Mr. Speaker. I don't like hanging. So my question to the Attorney General is this. Would he consider life imprisonment for the Minister of Technology, for the Premier, and the Treasurer instead of hanging, Mr.
Here,
Speaker?
here.
Mr. Speaker, the comment of wanting to hang somebody is, I still stand by, perhaps not stretching by the neck, but the comment was made, Mr. Speaker, in the context of what the Premier and the Minister of Technology have continually said, is that we want an investigation to get to the bottom of this, because I can assure you, every member of this government is concerned on what happened in Novotel. Why did this ungodly mess occur? And the Auditor General has been given this task. The Auditor General will do a thorough and complete investigation report back to this Assembly. At that time, we'll see what punishment is meted out to whom.
Main question, Leader of the Opposition. Second main question.
I second question, the member for Edmonton Kingsway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Novotel fiasco has gone way beyond the loss of merely $500 million to include allegations of kickbacks, conflict of interest, and misappropriation of funds. Yesterday, the New Democrats spoke to a former employee of the Novotel called Rusty Irwin, who admitted that he worked for Novotel for over 2.5 years between 1988 and 1991, while having an ownership interest in GMD partnership. To the Premier, what investigation has the government done to satisfy itself that the Rusty Irwin did not use his position at Novotel to line up funding for his GMD partnership?
Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't get into the honourable member's phony allegations.
I guess that means they've done no investigation. That's right.
Yeah, correct.
I would like to file 4 copies of a letter dated November 7th, 1990, from Novatel's Finance VP, James Chitkowski, to Gary Doyle of GMD, which says, and I quote, "I have been informed by Rusty of the successful development of your business plans for 2 of your 3 markets," unquote. The letter is copied to Mr. Irwin. Now, to the Premier, does the Premier agree that involving Novotel employee in a discussion about a business in which he has a personal financial interest is inappropriate and is a conflict of interest?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I guess we'll have to ask the Attorney General then. Can't. The man who would like to hang somebody, but no, the Auditor General can't, so I don't know how that investigation is going to be adequate. Given that Rusty Irwin told the New Democrats that he had previously informed his Novotel boss of his ownership interest in GMD, and given that the Novotel management in the United States ignored that information, doesn't this show the need for an independent judicial inquiry about these allegations, not an Attorney General, not the Auditor General?
Mr. Speaker, has been stated ad nauseum, the Auditor General will look through this and we'll look forward to his report.
Edmonton Glengarry on behalf of the Liberal Party.
Only judges can order hanging.
Mr. Speaker, the taxpayers of Alberta lost $33 million in one U.S. corporation and hold a $12 million note in that same corporation. Corporation executives have informed our caucus that the company is in serious difficulty, that it requires another $16 million, and that it's looking to Novotel for those monies.
What a surprise.
The ministers are suggesting, some ministers are suggesting that more taxpayers' monies will be used or needed to pay these American corporations. My first question is to the Premier. Mr. Premier, will you tell Albertans categorically that no additional monies will be taken from the taxpayers of Alberta and given to these American corporations that have already cost Albertans something like $700 million?
First of all, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member continues to have incorrect facts when he places his question, so I just can't respond to that kind of an allegation.
Mr. Speaker, a senior executive of Novotel has informed me today that the government has approved a line of credit for Northwest Trust to deal with American corporations, and that there is a possibility that further monies can and may be paid to these American corporations. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Treasurer what the extent of that line of credit is.
Speaker, I've already indicated to the House that Northwest Trust has taken on the responsibility for the collection of these loans, and obviously the normal course financing, they will put in place their own position. But I can say, Mr. Speaker, that there's nothing new that's been introduced by either of the parties here today. It's all been on the table. It's all old news, Mr. Speaker, and it's in the hands of the Auditor General.
Mr. Speaker, the minister and the government continues to dodge questions, and that's another example of dodging a question that was put to the minister. My final question to the Minister of Finance is this. I'd like to know what monitoring mechanism the minister and the government have put into place to ensure that monies that are given to Northwest Trust through this line of credit are spent properly, and that this thing doesn't get out of control in the same way that the minister and the government allowed it to get out of control with Novotel.
Well, I've already said, Mr. Speaker, to the leader of the Alberta Sales Tax Party that in fact we have this under control. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, we are acting in a collection position, and there'll be no further disbursements made to secure these loans. We're collecting, Mr. Speaker. We made full provisions, Mr. Speaker, and we put that all up front, and it's been displayed before all Albertans, and now it's in the hands of the Auditor General, and that report will be forthcoming.
Red Deer North, followed by Edmonton Calder.
Mr. Speaker, many Albertans are telling me they're becoming increasingly distressed with federal spokespeople who say that because Albertans are firmly committed, or many Albertans are firmly committed to the equal provision in the Senate and asking us to stand firm on that, that they're somehow un-Canadian. Mr. Speaker, the majority of Albertans who spoke to us in our Select Special Committee on Senate Reform, and the majority of Albertans who were recently polled in the Yerxa poll telling us to stand firm on the equal provision are not un-Canadian. They're not at all un-Canadian. They see this provision as being good for all of Canada. That's right. Will the Premier, through his Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs, ask and direct to these federal spokespeople that they deal with the equality provision on its merits as the discussion goes on its merits, and cease from insulting Albertans by referring to them as un-Canadian?
Mr. Speaker, I think the honourable member raises a matter that every member of this Assembly would be concerned about, because it is carried within a report in which all parties of this Assembly were involved. One thing our government promised to do in this Canada round of negotiations was to consult with the people of Alberta and then make sure their views were strongly represented. Now, I reject, and I'm sure all members would reject completely, the expressions by certain federal spokesmen and perhaps others who say that in the government and members of this Assembly expressing the views of Albertans that they strongly hold regarding a Triple E Senate, that they are in some way threatening our country. Reject threats and intimidation by any spokesman. Regard. We are going to speak and speak strongly for the people of Alberta. When you are asking for fairness and equality in a nation that is built on those principles, surely you are not threatening it.
Mr. Speaker, I understand the Premier has asked a couple of independent Alberta groups that are familiar with the whole Senate constitutional issue to do a review of the so-called Saskatchewan proposal, and I'm wondering if he's had an analysis back from them yet, or is there a timeline on that?
Well, Mr. Speaker, while we are also conducting an assessment of the Beauchamp, Saskatchewan proposal, there are various titles been placed on it. The assessment's being carried out by Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs. We have also asked third parties, groups to assess it, the Canada West Foundation, the EEE Senate organization, and I'm looking forward to receiving their assessments of the proposal. But because we respect the Premier of Saskatchewan's attempts to propose potential solutions, I would like all Albertans and members of this Assembly to know that our government is not moving on the principles of a EEE Senate. The people of Alberta feel strongly about it. We feel strongly about it. I feel strongly about it. And I will not be changing my position regarding a EEE Senate.
Edmonton Calder, followed by Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not only has this government imposed a $3,000 limit on funding for individuals with disabilities, preventing many of them to live in the community, Mr. Speaker, but they've also placed a new $3,000 limit on handicapped children's services, which is now home care for children with special needs. Mr. Speaker, the Premier's Council on the Status of Persons with Disabilities has indicated there are several children in the University of Alberta Hospital that could live at home but are unable to do so because the cost of services would be above the $3,000 limit. Yet it is costing $1,200 a day to keep them in the University Hospital. I'd like to ask the Minister of Family and Social Services, how can the Minister justify spending this kind of money to hospitalize these children and yet deny them the right to live at home with their families?
Call that spending control?
Mr. Speaker, again, the member knows that we have in place in this province a Handicapped Children's Services is providing services to some 6,000 families across Alberta, that there is a review currently underway that we are in the process of, again, consulting with Albertans, working with Albertans to make sure that our policies and our regulations and our programs are reflecting current circumstances, Mr. Speaker. We're going through that. The member also knows that there is a appeal process, and that process has been used successfully on a number of occasions, Mr. Speaker, to help integrate some of those children back into the community.
Mr. Speaker, this minister cannot be consulting, or he'd realize how serious a problem this is. My supplementary to the minister is this policy is clearly preventing children from living at home with their parents, and others are fearing that children that are already living at home with their families will have to be institutionalized. And I would again ask the minister, can the minister explain why he prefers to have children living in institutions, which is much more costly, rather than having them living at home with their families?
Mr. Speaker, again, the member is so often the way makes inaccurate conclusions. This minister does not prefer to have children institutionalized. This government does not prefer to have children institutionalized, Mr. Speaker. We do everything that we can to help successfully integrate children back into their homes, back into their communities, and that member knows full well that we do everything that we can. In terms of limits within the Handicapped Children's Services, Mr. Speaker, they haven't been established at this point. They have not been established at this point, Mr. Speaker. As I said earlier, we are going through that consultative process. We have a good program in place. We're trying to make it better, Mr. Speaker. There's an appeal process in place, and the member knows that there are cases involving many more dollars than the $3,000 a month that she's quoted to integrate people from hospitals into the community.
Mr. Speaker, once again we hear the Solicitor General's refusal to obey a court order. For instance, last week, Mr. Speaker, as you remember, the Solicitor General refused to pay for treatment of a young sex offender in the highly acclaimed Phoenix program. Fortunately, the courts overturned that. But this week now, the Solicitor General is refusing to pay for a court-ordered addiction treatment for 3 young offenders. And to the Solicitor General, since the Young Offenders Act clearly states a judge can order treatment at a specific facility, I repeat, specific facility, why does the minister keep insisting on ignoring this law?
Mr. Speaker, the Solicitor General's Department and this government does not refuse to pay for treatment for young offenders. But you identified the exact issue that's here. The court is directing a specific program. And when that starts, it cuts down the flexibility of the Solicitor General's Department and its budget for the people of Alberta to direct its resources to the best use. I have before me here, and I can go through them over and over, the types of programs that we fund throughout this province as it relates to addiction or to young sex offenders and the help that we provide for them. In this case that we appealed before the court, again, I stress that you brought up the exact point, that a specific program was identified that's very costly and one that we notified in 1990 that we no longer would be funding. The court has upheld its decision to specifically name that program, and we will continue to have discussions through the Attorney General's Department with the court. If you bring forth a supplemental, I will get in to a discussion of why we believe that is right.
Mr. Speaker, the law of the land is that the federal government sets the laws, and in a court trial, the judge and the experts decide what's best or what should be done with the offender. What possible right does a Solicitor General of this province got to ignore the professionals of the court and ignore the federal laws of this land?
Mr. Speaker, once again, so there's nothing left on the table. We are not ignoring or abrogating our responsibility to the courts or anybody else. We are making a point that we cannot, into the future, have courts directing specific programs. They can direct treatment for sex offenders or addiction, and we have 500 agencies in the province. We have our own psychologists. We have 16 institutions in this province that are funded by the taxpayer that have a whole plethora of programs. We're getting right in to the social charter issue. If, and I say that if, because at the present time it's before the constitutional debate, a social charter goes through, that means that a government then will be responsible for what they provide you, and if they start this sort of court direction to high-priced, specific social programs, God, taxpayer in this country will be broke before we wake up.
Member for Highwood.
Mr. Speaker, my questions today are to the Minister of...
Highwood, followed by Calgary Forest Lawn if there's time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions today are to the Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism and the Minister responsible for the Public Affairs Bureau. For some time, Alberta print manufacturers have complained that when they attempt to secure print contracts in other Western provinces, there's an unfair playing field. which contradicts the terms of the Western Accord. This issue was raised in the Assembly some weeks ago. My question then, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, as some weeks have now passed, is the Minister doing anything to ensure that Alberta printers are able to obtain fair opportunities to compete for work in the other Western provinces who are signatories to the Western Accord?
Mr. Speaker, the member has raised an important issue. As a matter of fact, it's true that some concern had been expressed by a number of printers across Western Canada, specifically those who operate in Alberta, but whose main plants are based outside of this province, that in fact that it was not fair treatment. Alberta made it a practice to conform to the tenets of the Western Accord in all its practices, but not all other jurisdictions were following the letter of and the spirit of the Accord, and as a result of that, Mr. Speaker, we decided to make sure that until such time as all jurisdictions were playing fairly, that Alberta would not recognize those manufacturers based outside of the province, and some were disenfranchised, if you will. But I am pleased to report now that officials from all 4 Western provinces met last week, and they've concluded an agreement that does in fact level the playing field and will provide equal treatment to all print manufacturers and print sales organizations, no matter where they're based or where they're operating, following Alberta's lead in this regard.
Mr. Speaker, my supplementary is again to the Minister responsible for the Public Affairs Bureau. Mr. Speaker, we know that 2 non-Alberta companies with Alberta offices were temporarily suspended from doing business with the Alberta government. Will the Minister assure this Assembly and my constituent, who is an officer of one of those companies, that these printers will be reinstated, as will other out-of-province printers be allowed to compete?
Speaker, I was contacted by a number of printers, as described by the member from Highwood. I also met with other individuals involved in this issue at a very highly successful fundraising dinner organized by our party and by the Premier recently. And I can say now that those people who are out of province but operate here with sales offices and agents here have been fully reinstated. My conversations with ministers from the other provinces responsible for this area of government procurement have in fact agreed that this is a necessary thing. They're all of a mind that we should be fair. We should all hold to the principles of the Western Accord. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to report that Alberta's lead and Alberta's resolve to stand firm for fairness has again borne fruit.
Calgary Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, during the estimates debate, the Minister of Advanced Education mentioned that the value of the physical facilities of our post-secondary institutions is some $4.5 billion, and that these facilities require some $600 million in deferred maintenance. He also recognized how critically important it is to do this maintenance now to avoid even greater future replacement costs. My question to the Minister of Advanced Education is, what steps is he taking to ensure that proper maintenance will be conducted now when it's most economically effective?
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, we make provision in each year's budget whereby the institutions are expected to carry out some degree of maintenance. The honourable member Forest Lawn is quite correct. Deferred maintenance is now escalating almost to $600 million in the system. We provide, Mr. Speaker, some $32.5 million with regard to funding, of which U of A and U of C get the majority. Mr. Speaker, it remains a concern, certainly. It'll be addressed again in the upcoming budget. But at this point, Mr. Speaker, there is substantial funds, some $32.5 million, that goes towards the 3 areas of furniture, equipment replacement, and deferred maintenance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister recognized in his answer to that question, the $30 million just goes to upgrade small-scale kind of equipment items for the most part. It doesn't deal with the Band-Aid kind of approach. It doesn't deal with the major issue. My question to the Minister, Mr. Speaker, would the Minister now agree that it would be better to spend money on maintaining and upgrading our post-secondary system than to waste it on unsound financial ventures such as Novotel, GSR, and MagCam?
A variety of others.
Mr. Speaker, I fail to recognize the relevance of the question with regard to an appropriation in the budget of the Department of Advanced Education with some other organization. As I point out, Mr. Speaker, very clearly, our 27 institutions have a responsibility not only to identify, but to see that some of the funds that have been available are used specifically for that purpose. Honourable members are aware, Mr. Speaker, cafeterias, student residence, in those type of facilities are not publicly funded and clearly responsibility of the institution.
Stony Plain followed by Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday in this Assembly, the Minister of Education blamed the Alberta School Board Association and other municipal organizations for delays in solving the equity funding issue. He said that they had broadened the issue so that it is, and I quote, no longer just a school board revenue matter, it is a local government matter. According to the March 1991 equity grant memo to school superintendents, the minister cut up to 65% from the board's additional equity entitlement. In the April 28, 1992 memo, he cut up to 91% from the board's increased equity potential. What this means, Mr. Speaker, is the more they suffer, the more they cut. Can the minister explain how taking away promised funds at the last moment with the memos will help needy boards to cope with their financial situations?
Mr. Speaker, the equity grant program, nearly $70 million that's provided to school boards who lack an adequate tax base to pay for the local cost of education, is a substantial investment by Alberta taxpayers. And until we can find the right kind of long-term solution, then I don't see Alberta taxpayers willing to constantly contribute to this problem. And I'm searching. I welcome the honourable member one more time. Doesn't have a solution. All he does is talk. But there's no solution out there. We have put out a solution, Mr. Speaker, and we are anxious to find consensus and find agreement, and I hope that we will do that in short order. But as I said to the honourable member for Red Deer North yesterday, until we get that consensus, Mr. Speaker, I don't see an agreement for a little while.
Get cracking. Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of solutions. He won't list it. If we quit subsidizing the U.S. cellular system, we'd have a lot of money. Mr. Speaker, the downloading at the expense of schools and school kids has got to stop. It appears to me that the intent of the minister is to starve Alberta's neediest boards, first with this equity funding cutback, and secondly with his vindictive two-count system. Given that the minister was prepared to commit $66 million in 1990 to top up his ill-conceived education trust fund that wouldn't fly, will he now commit these funds to rectify the problems of lack of funding that was created by these most recent formula cutbacks?
Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what the province is doing right now.
Were you guys sleeping?
Order, please. Order, please. The chair apologizes to various caucus. Some of the sheets got shuffled up here. The next member is indeed Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, both Edmonton and Calgary public school boards say that returning students with high school diplomas now make up between 20 and 25% of the grade 12 population, and they expect this number to grow. Despite their best efforts to accommodate these students displaced by the advanced education system, school boards are facing an even more punitive action at the hands of the provincial government. My question is to the Minister of Education. Will the minister admit that his double count will penalize school boards who accept these returning students for only one semester? And please don't say we asked for it, we asked for ESL only. Students may leave, but resources will stay.
Tell it again.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the short answer to the honourable member's question is no. But the longer answer, which I know the honourable members will want to hear, is that both opposition parties, at one point on April 23, 1991, to be precise, spoke in terms of supporting a two-count system. Yep. And they said, the honourable member from McKnight said, I would say that in terms of the schools that have high enrollments of English as a second language students, the time to implement 2-year counts would be in order. And I said, 2-year? And she said, twice a year counts, I'm sorry, both a September and a February, and quite frankly, would be able to support the minister within certain guidelines if it went up or down. And Mr. Speaker, I say to all honourable members that the logic of stopping only at ESL and not also applying that same logic to the basic foundation grant, not to the other special ed or not to transportation grants, but to the basic foundation grant, I think the logic also applies there, and this government believes in a results orientation, Mr. Speaker, and we are not going to ask taxpayers to fund an education program for students who are not there.
Sure caught the Liberals again.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is being created by this government's advanced education system, and you have 25% of the students with high school diplomas going back for 1 semester. How is the minister going to address this issue, especially with have-not school boards? They already face inequity. They also have returnees who have a high school diploma. They have no money to fund them, and that's just unacceptable by this minister.
You know, Mr. Speaker, it's just absolutely great to see the irony of this member's leader standing and waving his wallet, waving at something, and then I hear the honourable member saying, we got to spend some more. Spend, spend, spend. I'm sorry, but that's all that I hear from the honourable member. Mr. Speaker, it's very clear, and all school boards in this province know that when a student returns for a 7th semester and doesn't have a high school diploma, that when they complete their high school diploma in February of that year, then they will get full credit for that student as if they were there for the full year. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, what it takes is some ingenuity and some creativity that I see the likes of Edmonton Public, Medicine Hat Public, Twin Rivers, and a number of other school boards around this province using some creativity in providing a program to these young people. And there is absolutely nothing in the School Act that says that a school board couldn't designate 3 or 2 or 3 or 4 high schools in a large community like the honourable members and mine in Calgary that says that is where returning grade 12s will go back if they wish to come back for upgrading. But there is no right of entry or access to that school, to that community school. They've got to think up different ways of delivering programs that meet students' needs.
Yep. Barhead University.
My question is to the Honourable Minister of Environment. The Friends of Athabasca Environmental Association and the Prosperity Environmental Association have asked the courts to quash 2 government construction permits for the Alberta Pacific project. Mr. Speaker, this project now is 20% complete. It will be employing over 2,500 people on the site, and by July we'll be pumping $1 million to the Alberta economy on a daily basis. Mr. Speaker, and the leader of the Liberals, of course, calls this project an embarrassment, and the new ND candidate for Athabasca Lacklebus belongs to one of these associations that's trying to cancel the project. That shows you where their economic policies are, Mr. Speaker. Welfare, and more welfare. Yeah, right. My constituents do not want that, Mr. Speaker. Right. My question to the Honourable Minister, Mr. Speaker, is could the Honourable Minister give some assurance to my constituents that the construction of this project will continue?
Good question. Well, Mr. Speaker, it's really not the responsibility of the Minister of the Environment to ensure that that construction will continue. But on the basis of the permits are in fact valid and allow the project to proceed under the Clean Water and the Clean Air Act. The point here is, Mr. Speaker, is that there was an allegation by the 2 groups mentioned that the government, in particular the Minister of Environment, fettered the discretion of the Director of Standards and Approvals. Indeed, Court of Queen's Bench ruled that that did not happen, and that was upheld by the appellate division, and I'm very happy to have those rulings, because indeed it is, and it has always been the policy of this government and will continue to be the policy of this government to not in any way fetter the discretion of the director.
Mr. Speaker, my supplement to the Honourable Minister is, will the Minister give some assurance or advise this Assembly if the province will be recovering the court costs from these environmental associations?
Good question.
All I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that we will discuss this with our counsel and seek his advice on the matter.
Senator.
Mr. Speaker, now that the taxpayers have witnessed the colossal loss by the Getty government of $566 million in the management of the Novotel fiasco, taxpayers are also becoming very concerned about the growing uncertainties and questionable management of this government's $400 million investment in the Husky upgrader. There's been well over $300 million worth of cost overruns, Mr. Speaker. Negotiations uncovering these costs are breaking down and are incomplete. Construction financing runs out today. There still is no operating agreement signed by the partners when the project is up and running, Mr. Speaker. It's a mess. Before we have another Novotel on our hands, will the Premier please get his Minister of Energy and Treasurer together to release full details to the taxpayers of Alberta of the status of their $400 million that has been pumped into the growing uncertainties of this mega project?
Mr. Speaker, that's already been done.
What? In those mumbling words, I did not ascertain an answer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's important that this Premier and this government get its act together to be open and to be fair and to be honest with the people of Alberta. Will the Premier commit to, on Monday, after the capital financing now has run out, that we will have for the taxpayers of Alberta a full understanding of how the cost overruns are being paid for, where the operating agreement is, and what the economic outlook is for the taxpayers in the short and the long term of this project? When are you ever going to learn to get your act together?
We have, Mr. Speaker.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Peace Country Agricultural Protection Association The Peace Country Agricultural Protection Association is seriously concerned about the yellowing of crops and trees in the Smoky River Valley and beyond. Drought and infection are not to blame. Air pollution is suspected. To the Minister of the Environment, what steps will the Minister undertake to increase monitoring in this area, not only of ground-level ozone, which is already being monitored, but more importantly of sulfur deposition and other air pollutions which are not being monitored?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there is ongoing monitoring. If there is a specific problem, and obviously the honourable member has identified one, all I can say is that we will have it further investigated.
Mr. Speaker, I wrote to the Minister some time ago and indicated to him that there is a specific problem in the Smoky River Valley, and the response is a single monitoring station of ozone level, of ozone pollution in the area. We need something broader. Will the Minister work with the Minister of the Agriculture and Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife to carry out a full survey of the affected area to determine the causes and the remedies for this problem that is affecting both farmers and the viability of forests in the area?
Speaker, if in fact what the honourable member says is true, what he suggests would be normal practice anyway.
Who asked that question? That's a good question. Edmonton Jasper Place, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are also to the Minister of the Environment regarding air pollution. Over a 20-month period ending last November, Albertans told the Clean Air Advisory Committee of their concern about high asthma rates in the province, one of the least progressive public and alternative transport policies among the G7 countries, the lack of energy efficiency legislation, and a number of other issues. Well, 6 months later, the government replied by stating they're going to set up another committee, or I guess what's now called a multi-stakeholder consultation, new phrase for an old process. In view of the fact that the government has now sent this process off to a committee and The environmental groups who participated have announced that they will no longer participate as a result of the stalling tactic. I wonder if the Minister of the Environment would tell us what he's doing to get this process back on track.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the process was never off track. The process was never off track, Mr. Speaker. Quite simply, the recommendations of the Clean Air Strategy were brought to government. Government accepted those recommendations. Unfortunately, there are some expectations out there that these recommendations can be implemented overnight. Well, legislation, if it involves legislation, takes some time. Program development takes some time. Policy development takes some time. The thing I think that is important here, Mr. Speaker, is that we have established a framework to address a number of problems relative to developing or protecting our air from pollutants. And indeed, there are a number of programs that were adopted in advance of the Clean Air Strategy and were already underway. And if the honourable member asks me a supplement, I'd be glad to go through them.
Well, I may just do that, Mr. Speaker. Let's get specific. The expectation is created because the Advisory Committee was unanimous in recommending an Energy Efficiency Act, energy efficiency standards in the Alberta Building Code, government fleet efficiency standards, generation of electricity through cleaner sources, and vehicle emission standards in urban areas. Unanimous. Now I would like to ask this minister why he can remain part of a baffle-gab government which refuses to act on these specific things which were unanimously recommended to government.
Unanimous. Come on. I am very glad the honourable member asked the question, Mr. Speaker, because it gives me an opportunity now to go through the list. Actions already taken to respond to the Clean Air Strategy for Alberta. Adopted in its entirety the Clean Air Strategy Statement on greenhouse gas emissions as government policy. Agreed to create a new air quality management system. Announced a review of the coal-fired electric generation fuel use policy to include natural gas. Have underway an electricity regulatory review, including incentive regulations and demand-side sale management. Started compiling inventories of greenhouse gas emissions. Alberta was the first province to complete a carbon dioxide inventory. Have included in the Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act provisions to allow zonal management of air sheds. Have included in the regulations relative...
Thank Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the forced summer closure of the George Spady Detoxification Centre in Edmonton because of budget cuts points to the serious lack of government commitment to support needed drug treatment programs. Mr. Speaker, the chairman of ADAC has indicated in questions that the centre would remain open at night. The fact of the matter is only the shelter is open at night. The detoxification centre is closed completely. My questions are to the chairman of ADAC. Will the chairman tell the House how shutting the detoxification centre for 2 months, forcing 300 people onto the street, fits in with ADAC's mandate?
Mr. Speaker, I should indicate to the House that the Centre has received an increase in funding for 1992-93 budget year of some $13,000 through the generosity of the government. Mr. Speaker, which gives this centre somewhere in the order of some $40,000 to $45,000 a month to operate this facility. There should be also known, Mr. Speaker, that Public Works Supply and Services during this period would have to have the centre vacated to some degree in any event for some work that is being done to upgrade the safety of this premise for the people who are, in fact, residents or clients of the centre, because we believe that the safety of these people is of the utmost. Certainly, there will be a portion of the centre that will not be used during the summer months. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, as has been the case where we've closed down another facility in the city from time to time, we have been able to accommodate the bulk of these clients either through the use of Spady or through our own addiction centers within the city, including a hospital. So, Mr. Speaker, in general terms, it is my assessment that the bulk of the clients that will be necessarily removed from the center for a short period of time can be accommodated with other services.
Mr. Speaker, that's not good enough, and the chairman knows it. The other centers simply can't accommodate that volume of people. Mr. Speaker, we've got all of this flies in the face of the government's professed concern about substance abuse and the new foundation. I want to ask the chairman, will the chairman immediately request emergency funds to keep this particular center open, emergency funds from the new drug foundation?
Mr. Speaker, the foundation has been placed there to not duplicate the services that ADAC provides or monies that ADAC provides for services of treatment. And that's about as far as I'll address the foundation. It comes under the minister. And insofar as requesting additional funds, Mr. Speaker, Spady Center does some fundraising activities throughout the year to assist them to manage this center. ADAC does not provide 100-cent dollars, has not in the past. It is my assessment, Mr. Speaker, again, that the people are well looked after. Additional money has been provided to the center for this fiscal year, and quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the people are well served by this facility.
Good answer. Might we revert briefly to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Minister of Municipal Affairs, followed by the member for Calgary-McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased that our guests have stayed through the whole of question period, and I'm pleased to introduce to you and through you to members of the Assembly 53 students from Keno-Sheo School in the city of St. Albert who are accompanied today with their educators, Mr. Fitzgerald and Mrs. Mago. I apologize if I have the mispronunciation on the last name, accompanied with an assistant, Mrs. Lilgert, and I would ask if they would all rise in the gallery and receive the traditional welcome of the Assembly.
Calgary-McCall.
Speaker, it's my pleasure today to introduce 27 visitors from the Kalmar School in the constituency of Drayton Valley on behalf of the Honourable Member for Drayton Valley. Included in the visitors list, Mr. Speaker, is Mrs. Erdman and Mrs. Wilson, and I would like to ask them to rise and receive the welcome of the Assembly.
Member for Rocky Mountain House with clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, earlier today when I was giving oral notice of the introduction of a bill, I used the wrong date, so I want to correct that. And I'm giving oral notice that on Monday, June 22nd, 1992, I will be introducing Bill number 43, the Municipal Statutes Amendment Act.
Thank you. Member for Edmonton Strathcona on a purported point of privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last evening, I gave notice to yourself and to the Honourable Solicitor General of intention to raise today a question of privilege. The factual basis for the question of privilege begins with a letter dated June 12, 1992, copies of which I have for filing, Mr. Speaker, which states, I acknowledge your letter of June 9, 1992, requesting permission to tour the Fort Correctional Center on June 18, 1992. Unfortunately, I am not able to grant your request at this time. As the Solicitor General for the province of Alberta, I have the responsibility of maintaining a secure corrections population. Should the opportunity arise where a tour might be facilitated, I will inform you. Thank you for the opportunity to respond to your inquiry. This letter, of course, comes from the Solicitor General in his legislative office and is signed by him. In yesterday's proceedings during question period, I asked the Solicitor General if he would reconsider his decision to refuse my request for permission to visit and tour the Fort Saskatchewan Correctional Institution, and the Honorable Solicitor General replied that he would not, and that is recorded in Hansard, Mr. Speaker, at page 1461. Mr. Speaker, this morning I'm entitled to speak to two aspects of this matter, and that is firstly the prima facie case, and secondly the satisfaction of the procedural conditions. And if I might deal with them in that order, I submit, Mr. Speaker, with respect to the prima facie case, that the facts are incontrovertible. They are documentary in nature. They consist of the letter and the statements given in the House with respect to the request to reconsider. The refusal is a continuing refusal, and thus, Mr. Speaker, every day that the refusal to permit me access continues, there is another offense or another question of privilege raised, and therefore I submit, Mr. Speaker, that I meet the test of having raised it at an early opportunity. The authorities, Mr. Speaker, and I will not be very lengthy. I've tried to keep my comments to a minimum, but this is a complex, and I submit an important matter and requires some examination. So I will make some brief reference to authorities. I would like to begin, Mr. Speaker, by reminding you, and I know that all members of the Assembly, but in particular the Speaker, is familiar with the provisions of the Legislative Assembly Act in Section 9, which speaks to the privileges and immunities of members of the Legislative Assembly. And 9.1 provides as follows: in addition to the privileges, immunities, and powers respectively conferred on them by this Act, the Assembly and its members and the committees of the Assembly and their members have the same privileges, immunities, and powers as those held respectively by the House of Commons of the Parliament of the United Kingdom, members of that House, the committees of that House, and the members of the committees of that House at the time of passing the Constitution Act 1867. Section 10 of the Legislative Assembly Act then goes on to provide as follows. Section 10.1, the Assembly may inquire into, adjudicate, and punish breaches of the privileges of the Assembly and contempts of the Assembly. Section 10.2, without restricting the generality of subsection 1, the following acts constitute breaches of privileges or contempts to which that subsection applies. I note here, Mr. Speaker, that this speaks of both breaches of privilege and contempts, and these are specific examples that are not intended to detract from the generality of the provisions in Section 9.1. Section 10.2b provides, both in the context of privilege and contempt, obstructing, threatening, or attempting to force or intimidate a member in any matter relating to his office. Mr. Speaker, it is my submission that this is both a breach of privilege and a contempt of this Assembly, the actions taken by the Honorable Solicitor General. The key words here, I submit, Mr. Speaker, are obstructing a member in any matter relating to his office. I am going to give you, rather than the case law itself, some very brief dictionary definitions of the terms that are relevant in that section, Mr. Speaker, the pertinent terms being obstruction and relating to office. The definitions Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I consider this to be a very serious matter and something that affects not only myself, but all members of this Assembly. This is a very basic democratic principle, and I object to the gestures of this member across the way this morning, where he threw back his head, yanked up his tie, stuck out his tongue, and rolled his eyes.
Order. 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 Take your place, honorable member. Order. Order. When we are dealing with a Standing Order 15 privilege, order. It's incumbent upon all members of the House to pay attention or otherwise go out and have a cup of coffee. Now, the next part, Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona, you're being diverted from your cause here. What you're raising might likely be a point of order which was not raised at the time that the incident occurred in the House. So if you now would like to deal with, come back to privilege other than the things you just threw out in the last moment.
Mr. Speaker, and I apologize for having been distracted. Mr. Speaker, the definition of office, and this is a definition that appears in the Encyclopedia of Words and Maxims, Legal Maxims. It's the third edition. It's a Canadian legal dictionary. And in Volume 3, office is defined as follows. The usual meaning of the word office is a position of duty, trust, or authority, especially in the public service, which I submit applies here, or in some corporation, society, or the like. The definition that's given in the shorter Oxford English Dictionary is as follows. A position to which certain duties are attached, especially a place of trust, authority, or service under constitutional authority. And of course, that is precisely what this assembly is the place of constitutional authority. And of course, there are duties which attach to that office as a result of that Constitution and as a result of the traditions and histories of the parliamentary procedure. Obstruction is defined in Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, at page 972, as follows. I won't read the complete definition, but the part that I consider to be particularly relevant here. Obstruct, to hinder or prevent from progress, check, stop, also to retard the progress of, make accomplishment of, difficult and slow. And certainly the actions of the Solicitor General have done that to me in terms of the matters that I'll be discussing immediately. It also states under this definition to impede, to interpose impediments to the hindrance or frustration of some act or service, an act or service, such as, for example, and the example is given, obstruction of a police officer in the execution of his duty. The Black's Law Dictionary definition of office is as follows. A right, this appears at page 976 of the same edition of Black's Law Dictionary. A right and correspondent duty to exercise a public trust, a public charge or employment. Public charge or employment. An employment on behalf of the government in any section or public trust, not merely transient, occasional, or incidental. The most frequent occasions to use the word arise with reference to a duty and power conferred on an individual by the government. And when this is in connection, and when this is the connection, public office is a usual and more discriminating expression. But a power and duty may exist without immediate grant from the government and may be properly called an office, as the office of executor. Here, the individual acts towards legatees in performance of a duty and in exercise of a power not derived from their consent, but devolved upon them by an authority which is superior. And I submit here the authority which is superior, which devolves these responsibilities and duties in this office on me, is the conduct of an election in our democratic system. So, Mr. Speaker, I submit that those words in particular are important in your consideration. Related is another, because it has to be related to the office. Related is defined in Black's at 1158 as meaning standing in relation to, connected with, allied to, or akin. And certainly this is something I submit, and I'll make this clear further in my comments, that the Attorney General's refusal is related to, is a refusal related to my office as an MLA. I'm sorry, the Solicitor General, my apologies. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to refer briefly to several parliamentary authorities, particularly the Erskine May, and the authorities that I'm relying on, as soon as I locate them here, are from the 21st edition of Erskine May. Chapter 5, The Privilege of Parliament, Erskine May, 21st edition, page 69. The privilege of Parliament. What constitutes privilege? Parliamentary privilege is the sum of the peculiar rights enjoyed by each House collectively and as a constituent part of the High Court of Parliament, and by members of each House individually, without which they could not discharge their functions, and which exceed those possessed by other bodies or individuals. Skip a couple of sentences and it goes on. The House cannot perform its functions without unimpeded use of the services of its members. Other such rights and immunities, such as the power to punish for contempt and the power to regulate its own constitution, belong primarily to each House as a collective body for the protection of its members and the vindication of its own authority and dignity. And I submit that those issues arise here: the protection of the members of this Assembly and the vindication of the authority of this Assembly. Fundamentally, however, it is only as a means to the effective discharge of the collective functions of the House that the individual privileges are enjoyed by members. When any of these rights and immunities is disregarded or attacked, the offense is called a breach of privilege and is punishable under the laws of Parliament. Each House also claims the right to punish as contempts actions which, while not breaches of any specific privilege, obstruct or impede it in the performance of its functions, or offenses against its authority or dignity, such as disobedience to its legitimate commands or libels upon itself, its members, or its officers. The next citation, Mr. Speaker, is Chapter 9, dealing with contempts, the same edition, 21st edition, at page 115, and it's a very brief paragraph which reads, "Generally speaking, any act or omission which obstructs or impedes either House of Parliament in the performance of its functions, or which obstructs or impedes any member, or officer of such House in the discharge of his duty, or which has a tendency, directly or indirectly," and I submit that that is important, "directly or indirectly to produce such results, may be treated as a contempt, even though there is no precedent for the offense." Now, Mr. Speaker, I have, in the time available, attempted to find a precedent for the situation here. I have not been able to find a precedent in this jurisdiction with respect to it, but I have found something that is somewhat akin to it. And I submit, Mr. Speaker, that it's quite obvious why there's no precedent for this type of an offense, because nobody in the history of Parliament, in the centuries that parliaments have existed, has taken such an outrageous position. Mr. Speaker, in Browning, the Australian authority, the House of Representatives practice, and I'm sorry I don't have the edition number, but it's page 706, and I'll provide that to you later. At page 706, deals with the question of discharge of duties in the following terms, and it cites a case in 1986. In 1986, the Committee of Privileges considered a case in which the work of a member's electorate office had been disrupted as a result of a considerable number of telephone calls received in response to false advertisements in a newspaper. The committee's report stated that the actions in question were to be deprecated, that in all the circumstances it did not believe action should be taken, but that the harassment of a member in the performance of his or her work by means of repeated or nuisance or orchestrated telephone calls could be judged a contempt. Now, I submit that the actions of the Solicitor General, the repeated refusals to permit me access to the facility that I've requested to do, represent nothing less than harassment. Mr. Speaker, although, and the source of the harassment is the precincts of this Assembly. The Solicitor General issued the initial
directive from his office, his Legislative Assembly office, which is part of the precincts, I submit, of this Assembly, and he repeated it and continued his statements and his denial of permission to me in this Assembly itself, also within the precincts of the Assembly. Mr. Speaker, with if I might just find my notes.
That search, may I just point out that usually we go about 15 to 20 minutes with respect to making the case for privilege, and under Standing Order